So if you can get some of that data automatically to help you understand your metrics, and it's just because, you know, you're going to fill up an 8-hour day with a work order. But this way you actually see how much time it was spent to exercise that valve in the hydrant with water, and you can tie it to the asset ID, for example. So there's some really exciting things you can do with work. This is the mobile view. You can create custom fields. I can take these jobs and push them in and create closed work orders in CityWorks when I'm done. So it's a huge advantage there to go through what we call GeoConnects, which is our connector product to these other systems. So to talk about events, there's different kinds of events. One is in a linear event, and so really for us GIS people, it's a vector. But here we can then see where the vehicle is with the broom up, for example, and where the broom is down. And we get a report with per vehicle total distance, average speed, and you can do average, I already said average distance. And essentially, that's what you need for your NPDES permit requirements. That's it. Something that takes you probably many, many hours right now can be completely automated for the NPDES permit process that you have. In terms of point events, we can create points of interest. This is an inter-office mail, and just see how long people were spending at each site. And so this is my time at site. You can use names that you're familiar with. Another way of tracking work, if you think of it, work activities. Someone leaves, this is the Seattle area, someone leaves the jurisdictional boundary, maybe you just want to get an email. So that's very straightforward. This particular manager just wanted to know when their staff are outside of the Sound Transit jurisdictional boundary. And the first time this is an unnamed agency in Idaho, the first time we went live with them, we got a trigger that they left the state, got an email outside the state of Idaho, and then you can just click on that email if you're curious. It's odd, want to know more, you click on it, you can go right to LEGO. And they drove to a remote graveyard in the middle of nowhere, sat there for 17 minutes, so that's interesting. There's lots of fun stories. But then this is the maintenance events screen. If you're interested, I can show more on that. This is you can get to the system by clicking on the email? Yeah. Yep. It just goes to, since it's all web-based, it just goes right to that event. And you can actually click on the event then and say, oh, it was 80 miles an hour. Or, yeah, it was harsh braking. You use single sign-on? Yeah. Well, it's all username and password. So what I mean by it is, will you be able to use our Active Directory credentials? I'll have to get Ken. I think there's an issue with that if it's not set on premise here. Right? Not. Yeah. I mean, our LEGO is not here on premise typically. So let me get a better answer to you on that one. But I know I think there's an issue when we have an off-premise application like this, but I'll get an answer to you. So we like to think of LEGO as, LEGO, by the way, is like Lego, it's Latin for connect. A little interesting tidbit. We like to say it's a platform as a service. You know, the web application by itself isn't enough. There's two areas that we are working on and can deliver on now, and that is collecting a variety of sensors in your vehicle, like temperature, any CalAmp device, any phone, any tablet that's connected. That end, connecting in, and on this side, through LEGO Web Services, which we call LEGO Access now, being able to push data into Esri, going way beyond what the Esri GeoEvent processor does, we can actually create features. I don't know if there's any GIS people here. Are there? Yep. Yeah, so it's not just a dumb point. We can do dumb points on the GIS map. But when you have these linear features, you're really going to want to have the analytics in GIS. And so we can go and actually create linear features and point features.
Would it have to, if you want to get the data continuously, would it create new each time and overwrite the whole one?
It depends on what you want to do with it. So you have a lot of flexibility. and Jay can add some details there, but basically you create a geodatabase. We have like local government models. We have a legal model that will accept the data, and then you in a safe place, because we have to push it through your firewall into that, and then you can go and do what you want with it. Hopefully I summarized, if Jay's on, hopefully I summarized that well. So our goal here is not to push IT staff over the edge, but actually work with them and work with the systems that you have right now. So we can, I meant to change this, sorry. So we can see vehicles in your CityWorks operational GIS map. We can populate and modify GIS features. We can populate and modify CityWorks assets, and we can populate and create work orders in CityWorks, for example. And that's just that business. Any developer or contract developer you have can actually pull data from LEGO as well through that web service, which is really pretty powerful. So the idea is you have this time series data that's constantly populating LEGO, but some elements of that you're going to want to see along with work orders, maybe, and service requests in your operational map, which is GIS. And then we can also create what I call events, like a service request, a work order, or inspection. You can open it, or you can close it, or you can modify it through the CityWorks APIs. So this is, we can put maps on ArcGIS Online. We can put maps on a CityWorks operational map. This will look familiar to maybe some of you.
Do you provide the licensing to the ArcGIS Online?
No, no. You have it.
Yeah.
You probably have it. You have ArcGIS server anyway, and we can work with that. But most of the time, people want to see it on their data, unless you're trying to push where are my snow plows out to the public, that kind of thing. You're probably not going to use ArcGIS Online as much. Or it can be ArcGIS maps as well. So if you're just doing something internal, we can push the data right to ArcGIS map and actually create linear features in your GIS, which is, that's, as far as I know, I don't know many people doing that. It may not mean a lot to most of you, but what this means is if I'm snow plowing here, I have data about my snow plows, and I can actually report out by road type in and near Grand Rapids based on your GIS road network. So,
can we do other overlays internally?
You can,
like web services,
yeah.
So we can see like
Yeah,
the radar.
yeah. Because we're just populating, think of it as a layer that's your LEGO layer that you can use for anything. So if you've got other apps and you just want to pull some of that data in, maybe today's data into another app that you're exposing to other users, yeah.
Pretty easy to do that, like a weather service or something.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that now with the GIS. GIS. Yep. Yeah, and I should probably go a little faster so you can see the demo. But absolutely, so we can bring a web service, map service, your data into LEGO. So instead of seeing it on Google Maps, you're seeing it on the Esri Map Service. Yeah, so you can see your water system, your assets, and maybe your preventative maintenance work orders all in one place. So creating work orders, a little bit about our system. So since 2012, we've been down maybe 2 to 4 hours. And this one was because Verizon's network went down, and our IT guy actually showed him where their system was broken. It was kind of a big deal for Verizon. That was a fun. But so my IT guy likes to say we've been down less than Google and less than Microsoft. So we have complete redundancy of our servers. We have redundant internet. The map I showed earlier of how I drove here this morning, that was on Microsoft Azure, but our servers that we use operationally are much, much faster. So complete failover, complete redundancy. And when you call us, you actually get a technical person that can usually solve the problem on that call. And the way we do that is we go crazy on training. So we will train for free, maybe not on site for free, but we'll train for free until you're happy. And that way our support calls are less too. But that's how we do that. If there's any questions on budget, I'm going to leave those for the last 15 minutes. The schedule is pretty standard. This is our standard how we deliver. Usually the blocking issue is getting the vehicles to actually do the installation. You know, that's the thing that slows you down. But with that, I'm going to let Rhett take over and do a little bit of demo before our Q&A session. Well, he's taken over. Any questions?
Earlier you talked about the hotspot being 55 series, so 4230 work in hotspot as well.
So the one that's typically recommended for hotspot, there's a new cradle point, that's very good, and the cradle, and then the CalAmp 5530 are the ones that are typically recommended for in-vehicle hotspot. There's other vendors too, but those are the two that we see going to the top of the pile. If you're ever using a WebEx, if you click this little button, you get full screen. Tidbit. So go ahead, Brett.
Okay, can you hear me okay, Elizabeth? I'll try to talk loud here.
Can you hear it in the back? Yep. Okay, great. Go ahead, Brett. We can hear you fine.
Great, great. So I'll just get started here. So first thing I'm going to do is interact with the vehicles in my list here. I can right-click on any of the vehicles and do a variety of things, such as create a job and send it to that vehicle driver. One of the key things that customers always want to do is they want to draw today's track. So I'm going to draw today's track for that vehicle. And then when I draw that track, I can see the path that the vehicle took here. I can do a track replay. So I can click this replay option to give me an idea of the path that vehicle actually took. So it will go real time here as the vehicle goes. You can see over time as the vehicle's going and moving at different locations. I can add different columns, all the information that we're capturing here, for example, speed or other information that I want to know. I can add that here and visually see, but that gives me a quick way to view the path. And you can also do multiple vehicles at the same time, multiple tracks to compare, perhaps maybe where vehicles are overlapping. We had a customer, specific customer, Fort Smith, where they wanted to see where two vehicles were sort of interacting, and so you can track that and see where the paths overlap and those sort of things. If you notice, there's this red circle here. Where there stops, it captures the time. So notice 30 minutes at that location. So you have these red circles that show you visually where the time that they stopped at that location, for example. Some of the other things, so I've noticed also the track here gives me a quick view for today. They started at 6:27 a.m. Their stop, the last stop was 8:15, gives me a distance of 4 miles here. So that's the track. I can also look at sort of the details of the breadcrumbs by clicking on this track point. And this gives me a lot more detailed information. And you notice here, as Elizabeth was talking about some of that smart tracking, so we can get down to the second level. So this is 6:27, 43 seconds, 44 seconds, 46. So these are within 1 or 2 seconds, each one of those crumbs. It really gives us the good accuracy. You can see here the speeds at these various breadcrumbs. So as I click on any of these sections, it goes to the map and shows me that location with the information, such as perhaps the address of that location. I can also get a visual view of this as well by showing it in a graph form. So I can come up here and I can choose, for example, again, if I wanted to look at speed, I can check the speed option, and this gives me a quick visual view of where maybe the high points are. I can hover over those and it gives me the speed, the high points, and I can click on that and then it'll actually go back to the map of where that location is. So if you have certain areas where there's high speed, that's a quick visual view, being able to see that information there. So, so we showed sort of the stops, the times, the replay. If I want to go back here and we showed today's tracks, but perhaps I want to go back in time. I can go back as far as I want here and show additional days. So real quick, I went back to July 1st, and I can quickly see for various days here, again, when certain vehicles start and when they stop, the total distance and those sort of things as well. So I can clear this map, and let's say I want to pick this one right here. I can draw that track as well. Notice it took the ferry across over to Vashon Island there. So that's interesting. Another very useful tool that's commonly used by customers is what's called the proof of presence tool. So this is really handy to know whether or not perhaps a certain driver vehicle did performed a service or did not, or perhaps an issue with an issue like, for example, they ran over a stop sign or anything along those lines. So I can come into an area here, and I got a complaint that someone was doing donuts in the Husky Stadium parking lot here. So I can turn on a satellite view, and this was back in June. So I can draw a box over that area, and then pick my specific time frame that the issue occurred. So I can go back on June 24th here, and then do a search, and then it'll search any vehicles that were in that area. And I heard specifically it was around noon, so I can then draw that track and get an idea where the, for example, incident occurred. So I'll draw a full day's track there, and then it shows, so I can see here where the vehicle drove through that area. They were actually parked there for an hour and 36 minutes. I can hover over that and get a little bit more detail. So again, that's a really helpful tool to either see perhaps if service was done or not done, those sort of things. If you wanted to narrow it down, for example, if it was a speeding event, you could pick, for example, speeding, actual speed. We do work with actual speed limits or designated speed limits. So you could narrow it down if that was a specific call that came in, but you could also just do a general filter there on that as well. So also, let me clear this, and I'll show you some of the reports that come along. So one report might be, for example, a speeding report. So you want to know daily speeding report. I can go in there, pick that out of the box report, and just generate that, and it will bring up any speeding events. The nice thing about our reports is it has a link to the map where the incident occurred. So you can see here, any of these are links to the map. I can come over here and actually see the actual designated speed limit and the speed that the vehicle was taking there to get more information, for example. Another common report might be for example, geofence violation report. So I can run that, and you can pick your parameters here. So you can pick things such as daily, weekly, monthly, or custom. Custom might be, for example, a quarterly report or an annual report that you want to pick from there. So I'll go ahead and generate this geofence event. So each one of these are, for example, broken down by vehicle here and total time outside of the geofence as an example. And if I pick on the link here and go back, it'll actually show where that geofence violation occurred. So this is showing the vehicle here. I can hover over that. It's showing me visually based on this is the vehicle here that's outside the geofence, and then where they went. And they spent 42 minutes at this location down here, for example. So that's a quick view of this. I'll come back later if we want to dig into things such as dispatch or some of the other things, but I wanted to show you also an example of where we're actually capturing work being done here. So this is a customer that's doing street sweeping. This could just as well be snow plowing. We have customers doing mosquito abatement, where we can capture where they're actually doing spraying. We have customers that are doing things such as paint spraying, where they're doing striping. So we can connect to any onboard systems, and the brown section here is where the broom is actually down. The light brown is where the vehicle is just driving. So we can see here, the nice thing about this is really accurate tracking for not only the visual part, but also the reporting to get accurate miles of how much they swept. And you can capture within geofences, for example, if you have districts and you want to know how much was swept within a certain district or how much was plowed in a certain district, for example, we can capture that information. And that's all coming into reports again. So we have, for example, a sort of summary report for the month for a vehicle, which gives the total distance and speed. If we wanted to get down to individual or detail level, we could get each individual where they're doing sweeping from address to address. And again, you have these links on any of the reports where you can go to the map and see where that specific event occurred, for example. We also have things where we're capturing time. This specific customer wants daily reports to know how much time they're spending in dump zones. So the dump zone is where they're sweeping, they're capturing, they're collecting all the debris and so forth that's on the streets, and then they have to go dump that material. And the supervisor doesn't want their crews to be spending more than an hour a day in the dump zone. So they get these reports that per vehicle that quickly shows them how much time they're spending in the dump zones here, for example. So just wanted to be able to show you that. Let me pop back here to this here. So also with our LEGO access, the data that's being captured can be brought over to ArcGIS, and so this was a customer, City of Beaverton, which is also a CityWorks customer. We're able to capture where they're sweeping and bringing this over to ESRI, so we can pass that data over. Then they can do, again, more analysis of that data in the ESRI environment. Also, live vehicles can also be brought over. So within the CityWorks application itself, so this is CityWorks, and I'm looking at a service request. So this is, in this case, this is a high water bill, and I want to be able to dispatch a vehicle to this service request. And so we can, again, bring the data over into your ESRI environment and into the CityWorks map. And that's just another layer that's available. So where you can turn these on and off. It's just another vehicle layer there. They are currently, looks like they're in their yard right now. But here's my service request, and I could then from there dispatch that a crew off to deal with that. Again, if you're working as a dispatch person or 311, you may not be necessarily using LEGO, but you're using the data in your own operations view that you're working with to be able to better plan or, for example, dispatch work. Also, you may want to populate data within CityWorks. So we're capturing a lot of information automatically. So I can look up, let me see here just looking up a asset here, record. And so we can populate data automatically. For example, this particular customer, we can populate the odometer at any given time, and then there's parameters that are set up within the CityWorks to automatically initiate a work order when that threshold of, for example, the vehicle every 3,000 or 5,000 miles needs a oil change or tire rotation. It can then initiate a work order. So we can populate data. We interface on the technical side. We interface with the CityWorks APIs, the metric API, work order API, and service request API to populate that information. So one other thing that I wanted to show is also some administrative functions here as well. So you have the ability to set up your own, yes?
Brett, we're going to probably need to wrap up on the demo so we get some Q&A. Sorry.
Okay, do you want me to show the roles and tags or not at this point?
I don't think so. But
okay.
Show it if you're interested in it. I would like to see what questions you have and then show you that. We could show you the GIS in Lego, for example, as well. But we only got a few minutes. I showed 10 minutes, but this shows 7, so I thought I'd take a break and see if there's something specific you'd like to see or specific questions that you have.
I don't want to jump under it. I've got a couple.
Okay.
I guess how old is this segment? What I mean by that is, let's say apartment park. So that there's completely different configuration for water versus parks, or in the sense that there is a crossover with access to the data.
Well, that's actually what Brett was just about to show, is how, from an administrative level, you can control who has access to what data and what views.
You create groups?
Yes. Yeah. There's different groups that based on login, and then the vehicles and crews, if you're doing driver ID, are within different groups as well. So there's fairly unlimited ways to group assets and then have those exposed to different logins.
But to just expand on that a little bit, so if water wants to have a report come up every day, so us and police, they won't get that report as well.
No.
The water people get that report. Okay, all right.
So there's different things. You only have your reports
right.
that are here, but you also can have individually different things you email to people that are in your sphere of influence. So it's not just the report online, but also the reports that you might be emailing to people as well. It's very, very flexible. And then say water, say you've got bucket trucks and other trucks. We have this. Brett, I don't know if you could just show admin as a backdrop or show buckets, but you can throw vehicles in buckets. And then with events, like let's say speeding, I can tag that event to just a subset of vehicles I'm responsible for. So does that make sense? And so I get reports just on that subset of vehicles. So I may not care about speeding at all, but for a sweeper, when the sweeper's down and it's going 50 miles an hour, maybe I want to know that. So I can apply just when I'm going 20 miles over the speed limit event, just to sweepers, and send that just to Bob.
I think another big concern is making sure that the police, for example, people don't have access to their vehicle at all, so they are part of the department.
Yeah, so right now we parse out, you can parse out which vehicles are viewable to different people based on login. And we can create a separate instance of legal as well, if you like that additional security that's just for police and fire, for example. Just so that you have a different administrator possibly for that instance, completely different than in another instance. So that's an option as well.
There's gonna have to be at least one or two high-level people who are creating big users who are in the.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, we work with you to set it up, but then we do basic user training, but we do quite a lot of administrative training as well. And we do training every month anyway through WebEx.
Who says that you're talking about your host? I mean, I obviously have an on-prem cloud-based solution, but is us have the ability to set the attention data?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can just tell us and contractually that.
But that's not something we can adjust.
You can, Rhett, can they modify the delete? So here's what I know we can do. There's different things. We keep 2-year standards. Some people want more. But we're working with a customer right now that wants the data deleted within 24 hours for privacy reasons. That's Washington State Department of Enterprise Services. So they do the fleet for all the state agencies in Washington. And it's because they're afraid of a public request. So we have an algorithm that will take it, create a report, so aggregate it, shoot it off to the business user, and then delete the data. So
Somebody still has a copy somewhere.
Not really.
There isn't a copy anywhere. There can be no copy.
Oh, I see, when you say pull down a report, I get, okay.
Yeah, or you could not have a report. But the other thing you can control is that you can also control it at a different level, is that maybe you only want events when the sweeper goes down. And other than that, I don't want to track. You can control that as well, but that's a little bit more of a customization of the actual GPS device. So you can control data from getting out of here too, for security. And then you can control data that's in the system, so you can't display it, or even have the data in. It's a SQL Server database, and so we can purge it. And I think that different business users are going to want to have different retention rates, from almost 24 hours to 2 years, and we can accommodate that.
So the point is, so talking to you, we have to say, can you adjust this rate? You would be able to go in there.
I'll have to ask. I don't know. Jay, are you on the line? I'll have to ask Jay that question. But typically it's just management of a SQL Server database at that point, and you wouldn't have administrative controls to our SQL Server, I don't think. But let me check. But you can
What
say
was the question?
I don't think that they can go and say, well, we want the data deleted in 50 days now. We would do that for them, right?
Yeah, you could delete it if you wanted to. So there's options for you to be able to delete it, or we could delete it for you. So.
Okay. I guess you can.
Is that a scheduled automatic deletion, or is it you just pick a day and log in and delete after a certain time?
Well, usually there's.
It's actually both. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you, Jay.
Yeah, it's actually both. We can configure it to delete after X number of days, or we can go in and you can go in by hand if there's for some reason something becomes an issue and you need to get rid of it quicker. You can do that.
I guess that's Jay. He's in Olympia. That's where we started our company. Other questions?
What capabilities does your system have to get the data from the vehicle? As far as, I guess, in a sense, if you already have a vehicle that has all the networking it needs, pass data back to our network, however you want. Is there something, is there just software software integration to be done, or does it actually require one of the magic black boxes?
Well, it depends. I mean, if you've got GPS devices in your vehicles now, and you've got another application that's collecting that data.
We're thinking of engine diagnostic information.
So if you've got another application that data is hitting, if you can get the data to the application and expose it through an API, then we can get it. So that's typically with police and fire CAD. There is a way to export the data to GIS, for example. We can use that same API to get that data to other customers. There's a tremendous amount of flexibility. Yeah, go ahead.
You can keep answering more questions, but is it possible for Rhett to put in the background what engine diagnostics would look like on yours, or how does that?
Yeah, can we do an engine diagnostic report maybe? He showed you that one screen, and that's basically anything that you can get through an OBD2, that
Okay.
port, essentially, we can get at that data.
Okay.
But we can also get at anything we would wire in to the this device. We can wire in any toggle, any kind of switch. So that's typically how you bring in.
Speaking of that, so on these devices, we have 5 or 7 inputs. When it talks about an input, is like, let's say for example, broom. Is it broom on one input and broom off another input, or is it on off one input?
So one broom is an input, and so
Okay.
we typically consolidate left and right broom to broom up or down. It's
Okay, so
typically
salt down, one input.
Yeah.
Salt on off, one input.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So we do have, it's kind of an exciting project we're doing with BSU through a grant and we have a sensor adapter that's allowing us to not just get those wired devices, but any Bluetooth, any wireless or wired device into the sensor adapter through Android up to Lego. So we're really going to be expanding. So if you think about it, putting anything out on a plow, for example, that's just a matter of time before that gets destroyed. And so if you can we think of our in-cab type as being parasitic. And so if I can detect the motion of even a hydraulic lift through a magnetic sensor, that's a heck of a lot better than trying to put something that physically measure when the plow is up or down. And that's what the sensor adapter is. We have a prototype now, and it should be complete in 2016, that project. So it's pretty exciting. So it just brings in all kinds of different sensors to your heartbeat.
For OEM equipment, the vehicle, basically tied trigger. You interface with the in-vehicle computer that's already out of the PC, I mean, the one that's in the vehicle before, or are you parasitically picking that up by running wires?
Because we've done integration a lot over the years, we know how difficult that is. And even if we pick one vendor, their versions are always changing. So we've gone with a parasitic approach. So if I can find out, like, if this switch goes on, and it's fairly simple wiring for a mechanic to track just that toggle, I feel like I have a more robust and more flexible sensor collector that way, and that's the way we're going.
So with the 5530s, you basically just have a tap the OBD2 port, and then that.
Yeah, yep. There's a cable that goes to ODB2 for any car over 1996.
Yep. Now, is that cable, can you piggyback, or let's say it comes in for service, we got to scan it for code, do we have to unplug this device?
Nope, there's a couple things you can do. This thing just goes under the dash, which is kind of nice, and it has a cable that can go to ODB2. This one, for just testing around, you can use your ODB2 plug up, or you do an extender and push the thing under the dash. But even better, you can wire it. You can wire that extender behind the port, so you leave your port open. Once you decide, yeah, we like this, it's working great, let's say you're piloting something, typically our customers are wiring it in behind the port and then under the dash.
And that's something you
That is clean information.
whatever wireless
all of the engine diagnostics
The way that's getting transported to your server.
wirelessly, right from this thing,
Right.
through Verizon wireless
That
cellular thing in it. Yeah.
that won't necessarily offload it to another device that already has.
Doesn't have,
wireless.
doesn't have to.
Could it?
Probably get a cheaper device than this if you're gonna do that. Because then all you need is a GPS, location to get to, for example, the GPS location going through this thing. No, I agree with that. So that's part of why RFPs are a little difficult when you have a large vehicle list. Different vehicles are gonna want, and different users are gonna want different widgets. And the only real big price break is when you go to the 5530. That's more expensive. But some folks are going to want to have these. Other folks within your department even are going to maybe want to have these. Other folks are going to want to have something that has no power supply. And then you use these things that have batteries in them.
So the ones that just track basically ignition on, ignition off, and location, so like for like a forklift, let's say, can we alter the initial hours start time? Let's say we have a used forklift that has 100 hours on it. Can we go in your system and say, okay, from now on, it's going to be 100 forward?
For
like ignition, ignition time.
Yeah, we could set up a
PM.
variable that's tracking that within LEGO. Yeah.
Okay, we can start that at 100 and go from there.
And you're talking about like engine hours?
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so,
Because some of these, we have just a standard rotary counter on them.
yeah.
That you wouldn't be able to basically connect to. So we would just be looking for ignition time on.
You want to be able to take existing equipment.
Correct.
From your
Yep.
system, what its status is on the
Correct.
life date.
Yeah, how long it's been
Yeah,
on
just
since
add
some,
to it, so you'll know.
Correct.
Start calculating
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
We can do that? Okay.
yeah.
What about a public viewing portion?
Yeah, it's a good question. So what is your policy now for what you're exposing to the public? So we could.
Very transparent here.
Yeah. So, but still you want to have the thing operational and scrubbed, and there's sensitivity to some data as well, especially if people bring their vehicles home at night and stuff like that. But anyway, you can push the data on ArcGIS online if you're pushing data that way now. Google Maps is really fast. So what we would probably do if for snow events, especially where you will have sometimes tens of thousands of hits hitting a server, is create a separate instance of LEGO just for that and use a Google-based viewing. But it depends on what data you want to show with it. If you're wanting to show your water system data, then you'd use a different tool. But yeah, you have some options there. And the thing you have to be careful about is some of these events that thousands
I
of
wouldn't be
people
concerned
hit.
with that,
Yeah.
how much detail we're going to put out there, but one of the things we've had several conversations about, and our city commissioners have brought up, having the public able to see when their street was plowed or not plowed.
Yeah.
Not
Are you
necessarily know
providing
where
the
the
web
truck is.
portal? But this, I think the question is, are you providing the web
It
portal,
would
or
be-
are we taking the data and putting it in?
That's
We
what I'm trying to get to.
we can do it, but we would probably have an extra cost for that for something that's going to be
More
snowplow.
customizable.
Not that it's customized, it's just that you're going to get thousands of hits, and we know that, for example, Esri has failed in that scenario, and there's old Esri partners like us that have switched to Google Maps for that sort of application. So there's probably a little bit more cost, not because of the customization, not because that's difficult, but just because of the number of hits, you can't have that thing fail when
Have you
you
ever
get.
done that for any other customers?
We've, no, there haven't been, the ones that we've researched have had it fail in Esri and then brought it into Google Maps. But we know the specs. If we say 10,000 hits in an hour, then we can make sure that the server can handle that. Alternatively, we can put LEGO in what's called a virtual appliance and put it on your system, and then you can decide, you can have your servers hosted. So there's a lot of flexibility there, but that public viewing wasn't necessarily within our current bid. So we can get that for you if you'd like.
Do you have any other customers in Michigan or locally here?
Michigan, we're working on that. Love to come back here more, but we have sites across the U.S. We have, say, Lincoln, that's somewhat close. We have Nashville.
Did you say Lincoln, Nebraska?
Yeah. Yeah, an enterprise, they're an enterprise site.
Is it, as far as you know, is it citywide?
It's becoming citywide now. We're right in the middle of an enterprise contract, not negotiating, but just getting it executed.
Yeah, what percent of your customers are a citywide application with police, fire, public works, all departments
I would
involved?
say probably, I mean, they start out maybe around 30%, but they're all going that way. So Vancouver, Washington, for example, is piloting in a bunch of departments. So it's, I think that's our strength, is being able to be sort of parasitic on your own systems and be able to show different data on different systems that you have.
What were some of the other customers?
So let's see. Brett, can you help me out? What are some of our other, we've been writing so many, been traveling too much.
So, yeah, you mentioned Vancouver, Fort Smith is another,
Somewhat close.
Clean Water
Enterprise.
Services.
Clean Water in Portland.
Opelika, Alabama is one of our biggest customers.
Yeah, there's CityWorks site.
Their CityWorks too, yeah.
City Beaverton,
CityWorks.
CityWorks.
You mean Fort Smith, Ohio?
Fort Smith is Arkansas. Yeah. Lincoln, Nebraska, we already said. And we've won Moreno Valley, California. They're implementing. They're moving forward in the fall. Our company, just a note, just
Oh, go ahead.
How do I? Can you give me back control here, Rhett?
Yes.
Oh, never mind. I got it.
Oh, you got it?
So I just want to say, just a note about, any more questions?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I've got lots of time. I just,
I guess one is, it should be said, if you're using CalAmp or whatever, those have the ability to work with any wireless.
yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, you have to buy,
You have to buy it.
for Verizon or for another vendor, but yeah,
But it's the same device.
it's the same vendor, it's CalAmp, but it's not the exact same device.
You can't swap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not on, yeah, you. However, if we're tracking tablets, then you can swap a SIM card.
On the 26 something, 44s and this all, so basically all the larger models,
Yeah,
those, in the spec that says that it has, an optional internal battery, do they come with an internal battery or?
yeah, the new 3030s, and I'm not sure if, they come with an internal battery. So if it gets disconnected, you can say that's an event to me and I want to know it,
Right.
and it keeps tracking.
What about the larger ones, like the 5530 and so on? I mean, do you have any idea how big those batteries are?
Well,
They come in?
typically, I don't know if, actually, typically those are wired in and behind the dash, so I haven't heard a lot about even the need for an internal battery.
The 2630 has an internal battery as well.
Yeah, 5530, does it?
I'll have to check on the 5530. I know the 2630 does. Also, we have asset trackers, which track trailers. Those have internal batteries as well. Last 7 years.
Okay,
My need for the battery for the larger units would be if the vehicle dies. Because we have vehicles sit over the weekend, it dies, where it's at that point, or we want to know an event, if the battery voltage drops to a certain level, we want that to be an event, and things like that.
right.
That's why we want batteries in the larger ones as well. It's just curious if they come with.
I just don't know on the
Okay.
5530. That hasn't come up a lot. The thing, and probably the reason is because that's going to have a lot of draw on a battery anyway, so it wouldn't last long.
Sure.
But I can check.
Okay.
Or you could, yeah. Let me just check on that.
What types of installations do you see where they need an external antenna?
Well, not a lot, except for like these sweepers that seem to be like ironclad in the front. If you've ever sat in those, and the behind the dash is behind quite a bit of metal, then we'll put an antenna up. But typically, if you place it, typically we haven't needed it a lot, except for some of these bigger rigs where when you're trying to get it under the dash, you're getting a little bit worse signal. And then we'll just throw those in. I mean, if you need them, we'll throw them in and just put the antenna on the windshield.
So Elizabeth, the 5530 does have an internal battery.
Okay. Yeah. So then the question is, how long does it last, and
Right.
does that work for your business?
Yeah, there's some
needs?
options for larger internal batteries, so.
Okay.
that's-
Okay.
Yeah.
Questions?
When you're holding up those black boxes, you're talking about standalone solutions, not providing any mobile office, anything else, strictly for
No,
IRL, fleet tracker, that type of
No, it's a hotspot for you to use any, let's say you're using CityWorks Mobile, then you just be using that hotspot. So any device can connect through that hotspot.
wirelessly,
Yeah, wirelessly.
or wire.
You can wire them too. They have the same types of ports that you have with these little things. Yeah. So, and the nice thing is the same programming language, we've customized how we track, and the code that we've written, that we download into these things, you can actually download into that Wi-Fi hotspot, the 5530, and have all the same great tracking. But anyone that comes near the thing then can use that Wi-Fi hotspot as well. So, well, it depends on how you want to go. We have ways to control what, to keep people from maybe using Netflix all day long. We can exclude the internet sites that are allowed. If you had your own Wi-Fi network that you contract, we can actually use your city Verizon Wi-Fi network as well. And it gets a little complicated from there, but basically you can send our signals through this VPN right to our server, or we can also send other signals through the internet to our server. So there's different ways to go, and that's a more detailed discussion, I think, with your IT shop.
Last question on the engine diagnostics. I saw the installed parameters you can look up for engine,
Yeah.
for coolant temperature, things like that. What about fault codes? If the check engine light comes on, will it
Yeah.
send you the fault code?
Yeah, you can get those events, right, Rhett, Jay? You can get the
Yes, you
engine
can.
fault code?
Yeah.
Standard, digit,
Yep,
okay.
yeah.
All right.
And then
As long as we're
maybe,
using,
what?
I was just gonna say, as long as we're using either the 3030s or, for example, the 4200s where we're connecting up to the engine, the 2620 or 2630s don't have the engine diagnostics, but if you need engine
But I do have-
diagnostics,
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
out of the
yeah,
box,
that is
so.
okay.
You can put a cable into them though.
Are you familiar with FirstNet?
FirstNet?
Yeah.
No. Is that a police something or anything?
In my office. But, theory, there's going to be a public safety wireless network landline edition across the entire United States.
Oh, okay.
And everyone's always told, make sure that anything you're getting is future-proof, you use FirstNet, which I think I'll be dead before that ever happens. But
Well, I can understand. Way back when I worked in Ann Arbor, I worked in defense and similarly had, landline hello phone
well, they
for
want to,
security.
they don't seem to
security.
understand what they're saying is recreate the Verizon network. That's you'd actually not need the internet. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, imagine the cost of that, you know, but yeah.
Yeah, so maybe the happy medium is getting a virtual private network using a commercial carrier.
No, I pretty much have to ask everybody, you know, is your technology capable of having another wireless device stuffed in it that's on another frequency spectrum?
To really handle security, any additional security issues would be to take LEGO and put it behind your police firewall, which you can do. We're doing that with another customer we have, is Westchester County, New York, and they want that virtual appliance behind their firewall. That's another level of security, assuming that the customer's security is good.
What's the life expectancy of the different units? 5530, it's got the Wi-Fi.
They typically, these ones, and the reasons, they're a little more expensive than some of the ones you can buy overseas, but they typically last, I mean, they're lasting 3 years.
3?
Yeah, but we'll replace them. So so essentially we retain ownership of these, and then unless you destroy them,
Your
they're
program, you were
stolen, we replace them.
proposing to lease the equipment.
Yep,
to us, right?
yeah, and so if it breaks, then we replace it. Typically, we recommend you keep a couple of configured hot swappable units around so that you can switch them really quick. And then we resolve the issue without bringing your vehicle offline for any period.
About 3 years.
Yeah, yeah. These are higher quality. I've you know, others are not quite. And that's one of the reasons that we want the scale amp for most devices.
Anything else?
I'll follow up with answers to some of these questions. I had this one last YS slide, but I really want to thank you for your time today. You know, we're a small company. This team that's on the phone and myself have been working together as a team for 15 or more years. So that's pretty unprecedented in the high-tech world. And we've deployed some very, very complex solutions across the U.S. This particular product is very scalable. So we're taking everything we've done. Our profits from last year to this year are up about 1,000%. So even though we're not small, it's hard to stump us when it comes to anything geospatial. And if you think big's good, you probably haven't flown Delta or Southwest recently. So for Delta to say that the power went out, and that's why 7,000, I don't know how many flights were canceled. It's crazy. But you know, you have my personal guarantee that we won't stop until you're satisfied. Our costs are, you know, comparable, but what we do that's different is we won't stop until the thing is working well for you, within the limits of what the system can do. And we'll customize and go a little bit beyond on support typically to actually help you configure different solutions so that you're satisfied. And we're exceptionally, if you look at what the LEGO Access can do, I think we put 2,000 in there. We'll work with you because we want you to be successful with that tool to be able to bring in different scenarios into CityWorks or GIS. So we'll work with your developers, and we have a very vested interest in making sure that you're successful with that integration.
I apologize. What is your customer service daytime hours call?
So we'll pick up a phone 24/7. Yeah, and but we also have a good customer portal too, and starting to stock videos and things like that. Videos tend to work well for solving problems.
A lot of our vehicles are worked on second shift.
Yeah.
Various crews are working 3 to midnight. So when they run into a problem at 10 p.m., especially if there's a snow event going on and we need to have trucks on the road,
Yeah.
that's what we get disconnected. But
Yeah, we have 24/7 on the phone. Some of the really advanced technical things. I mean, if it's that you may not get it done for a while at midnight, but so it's been a fairly robust. I mean, I should say very robust system, and our support lines are not busy. So we've been able to not stock up on a bunch of juveniles to pick up the phone. You'll hear Rhett or Jay, and it's because they've gone gone over the top on the training side of things. I mean, that's our goal, is to get you really comfortable with them, and so that you're feeling, that you understand how it works from an administrator level or an end user level. And then we have ongoing WebEx training on some new topic that Red does every month.
If you're operating over in Malaysia, you pretty much have to have extended hours.
Our Malaysia project was a IBM Maximo GeoConnect mobile water for Malaysia Water. So they're on their own. We're not doing, they own it all, and they've got an Esri Maximo integrated solution with their mobile product. We have a GeoConnect mobile product that we've had since 2003, much more rich functionality with GIS running in the background. That's what that solution was.
So if you have additional questions.
Sure, I'd love you just to email me, and then I'll make sure we get the questions answered, and I'll get the questions that you've asked today out as well. Yeah, okay. Yeah. If you got any questions, we'll do them all together. That'd be great, yeah, and I'd just love to get your feedback as well, what you thought, because we learn a lot in that process. All right, thanks so much for your time.